Hi friends, I hope you're having a good day. Today I had some thoughts and plans to do kind of a different video, but what's kind of coming up for me is that I am just having a moment. I'm processing some stuff, and I don't really know why I feel the way that I feel at this moment. And so originally I was like, I'm just not gonna make a video. I'm gonna wait until I feel a little bit better so that I feel like I'm better able to do what I had planned to do. But I had mentioned a phrase, a term called Alexithymia the other day in one of the videos that I discussed, and I feel like it's a good example today to kind of show you in real time what that looks like, because I struggle with that, and that's why I don't feel like I can do my other video. So I guess this is what we're meant to do today. So alexithymia, in kind of a nutshell, is the ability or the struggle, the barrier, whatever, to be able to understand what you're feeling. So essentially it is a spectrum. There is like a low side and there is a high side, but it is having a range of either inability to identify that feeling or inability to understand the kind of response that's coming from us. A lot of times there's a little asterisk here. People who are on the neurodivergent spectrum and or the autistic spectrum can struggle with this. There's kind of an intersection there. You do not have to be neurodivergent or on the autism spectrum to identify with that feeling or to struggle with alexithymia. But a lot of times they kind of go hand in hand. And for me, they go hand in hand. And I did not even know that this was something that I struggled with until maybe 2 years ago. Nobody had given me a label or a name or an understanding, a language, any of that. I honestly didn't even think that it was true for me. But I had a really good therapist. Her name was Taylor, and Taylor was on the spectrum, and we were kind of like divulging some of that information and kind of trying to get some clarity about me and where I was and how to diagnose me and like what kind of things I was struggling with. And in that conversation, she had said, "I wonder if you resonate with alexithymia. Have you ever heard of that before?" And I said, "No, what is that?" And so we looked it up and we talked about it, and she gave me what I just told you, right? And I said, "No, I don't know about that." And she said, "Okay, I'm not here to tell you what you do or do not experience, but just think about it, you know?" And I actually went home later that night and was talking to someone really close to me in my life, and I said, "She told me that I struggle to identify what I'm feeling, and I just don't think that's true. Like, I think I feel things so big and so deep that, like, I know what I'm feeling." And he said, I don't know about that. I think sometimes you don't realize that you're frustrated or that you're overstimulated or that you don't have much of a bandwidth until you're already kind of at that point. And so you might have like irritable outbursts, or you might just respond a little sharply. And I said, yeah, I guess I do that. And as I have kind of gotten used to it, like sat with it, processed it, felt it a little bit more, I can definitely understand that is for sure something that I do, and that this is something that I struggle with. So today, with that all being said, I just kind of wanted to give you kind of a first-hand look on what it feels like, what I do about it, what happens if I don't do something about it, those kinds of things. For a long time, as I've kind of put those pieces together and really like understood that this is something that I struggle with, I've realized that I classified it as something else in my brain for a very long time, probably middle school on. I would get moods where I just wasn't okay. I knew that I was processing something. I knew that something was on my brain. I knew that I wasn't necessarily like at full capacity, because when I'm at full capacity, I'm really engaged with other people and can hold a lot of space for other people. When I feel this way, I cannot. I am a little bit more like inside my brain. And so the way that I cope with this feeling is that I kind of withdraw a little bit if I can, if there's not something that's like forcing me to engage or interact. A lot of times I'll start listening to music, and I kind of revert into, I don't know, the analogy that's like kind of coming into my brain is like I'm a turtle and I peep my head into the shell. Like I'm just kind of like sitting here and hang out and wait until I can kind of figure out what's going on with me, and then I'll come back out when I'm ready. And so I just like to be left alone. I don't like to be engaged that much, or if I am, very minimally, and like nothing that's forceful. Anything that's like a need or a pressing concern essentially puts me into a position where I have to either like drop attending to myself completely and to engage with this other person. And so it feels to me on some like internal level that I have to put somebody else's need before my own. And that's not necessarily the intention ever, but because I'm just not in a great space and I know that and I'm trying to figure it out and it's bothering me that I'm not sure why I feel the way I feel and even what I feel in the first place, that now that I have to go and attend to somebody else, that I'm not in a great space to do that, and you asking me to do that anyway when I'm not in a great space is only going to create more internal conflict for me. So I have previously kind of attributed it to feeling melancholy. That was the word that I would like kind of use to describe it, and I never really said that out loud very much. Like I think maybe once or twice when I was in high school, I would say like, oh, I'm just feeling kind of melancholy. And then after I looked up what melancholy meant, I was like, that doesn't fit. That's not the right terminology for that. But to me, it is what melancholy would feel like. Like if I had to imagine what I think that word would mean without being given the definition, it would feel this way. And to me, like I said, it feels a little dissociative. It feels a little unclear or fuzzy, like it's almost like I'm kind of confused about something. It feels like I am not able to be 100% engaged and present. It feels almost like I'm irritated, but I'm not irritated at anything in particular. Ultimately, I think what I have kind of come to an understanding about is that it is in general a disruption in my internal nervous system. Like there is something inside me that is like just moving or spinning a little bit more than is normal, or that is like a little bit of a higher pace than like what is baseline. And my body on some level is aware that that is occurring, and my mind is confused as to why that is what's happening in my body, because there's no like context clues. that give me an indicator of why my body is operating in that kind of capacity. I will also say that from my understanding, there's not like a known reason why alexithymia occurs. Truthfully, if I had to give like mental health theories and suggestions and all of the things, I think that some of it probably is like an innate struggle. I think some of it is probably like a societal struggle, not being able to be taught what feelings are when you're young, and like what they feel like and what emotion that is I think a huge barrier. We don't really have a lot of emotion education as kiddos. We kind of have like our basic 5, like our anger and sadness and joy and those kinds of things, fear, but we don't necessarily have all of the emotions or feelings, and there's just so many of them, right? And so I think that goes into it. And then I also think that like if you've experienced trauma as a kiddo, then that also becomes a huge barrier, because a lot of times, depending on what kind of trauma you've endured, but there is most likely an internal impact of that, right? And that internal impact a lot of the time has to do with validating feelings and validating and acknowledging your response to it. And if that was never validated, or if that was never something that you were taught, there has been no skills that have ever been built to try to identify your response and then help you navigate through those things. So if that's never been taught to you, that skill has never been learned on a very base child level, right? It would make sense that you continue to struggle throughout your life to be able to understand what feeling that you have and etc. So that's kind of alexithymia in a nutshell. As I'm sitting here, I'm still kind of feeling that feeling, even though I'm able to kind of speak with you guys and process what it feels like. I genuinely don't have an idea of why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. Yesterday was a little like tense for me. I was a little anxious about some things that happened in my life, and I spoke with my family about them, but it wasn't anything that was super super dysregulating. Like I could tell I was dysregulated, but I spoke with them and that seemed to kind of calm me down. And then I went to bed and I woke up feeling pretty good about it, and so I don't really know why. It doesn't feel like that's the context that's related to this. And what's interesting is that sometimes it kind of feels like an emotional hangover, and I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to people. But to me, like an emotional hangover essentially is like I just had like a really intense feeling, or a really intense cycle of feeling where like I was really anxious, or I was really angry, or I was really irritable, and I kind of like came and escalated into this emotional response and then like this kind of behavior, right? And then I cycled into finally like a place of like calm, but my body is still kind of in like overdrive, because it's like trying to recognize that I am safe now. Like, okay, Emily has been able to calm down. Emily has been able to come back into a safe place. Like, I'm not in survival brain. There's no reason to be worried or fearful about safety. And it just takes my brain and my body a little bit of a second to kind of like reestablish that connection with each other and be able to communicate together to say like, hey, yeah, like we're good. Like I maybe know it a little bit in my brain, but my body doesn't know it, kind of. So that's kind of what I would describe as like an emotional hangover. And I think that that also can be a very good description of what alexithymia can feel like sometimes. it does feel a little bit different, I think, because many times, I believe, when I have experienced what I would say an emotional hangover looks like, I know why I feel that way, right? Because, oh, we just had a really huge week that was just like really emotionally intense, really stressful, really anxiety provoking, etc. But alexithymia is almost like having that feeling of the emotional hangover, but again, not understanding why, not having any context clues in that kind of capacity. So that is my video for today. I hope that that makes sense, and I'm interested to know what you think about it. If you've heard of alexithymia before, a lot of mental health professionals haven't. It's kind of something that is not super well known. I brought it to several of my therapists when I was in private practice, and tried to explain it, and they kind of were like, oh, so you mean like you just need a second to, what'd they say? Like, so like it's a trauma response. Like that's what they were, so it's a trauma response, and you are unable to access that feeling because it's not safe. And I said, no, I mean, that might be part of it. Like that might be a cause of it, but that isn't like the experience. So it, again, like I said, it's not something that's very well known by everybody. So I'm curious to know if you've heard about it. I'm curious to know if you have experienced it. I'm curious to know if you have tricks or tips on how you deal with your alexithymia. And I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Bye.